don't go believing anything I said. No, don't go believing me. No, don't listen to me, don't take any notice. Don't listen to anything that I say. Thank you.
Did you fucking know? You don't know?
No.
Viewers, you don't know who the cameraman is.
No.
You don't know why you're being made to see these things.
I create experiences.
In reality, you have essentially paid for some rights over a piece of land. But your rights to the land are overlapped by the rights of other bodies, such as the government and the monarchy, if there is one.
Parliament is made up of three parts: the House of Commons, the House of Lords and the monarch.
Speaking of monarchies, that's when things get really complicated.
Nor do I. You're seeing me. I can't even see you. I may be dead by the time you watch this. Very possibly are.
For example, in England, the absolute landowner is not the government, but the Crown, an independent body who acts on behalf of Her Majesty the Queen.
Now, what they've done is the court system actually bamboozled me and sent me in the wrong direction, which is a violation of my rights as a Canadian citizen. I go in on the 24th, and I couldn't believe it. There are attorney general prosecutors from Ottawa,
An independent body who acts on behalf of Her Majesty the Queen.
in the courtroom.
For example, in England, the absolute landowner is not the government, but the Crown.
And now my statement says, no longer does it say Dina Hinshaw versus Patrick King. It states the Queen, Her Majesty the Queen versus Patrick King.
You don't know who's the man who's making things he wants you to see. Destroy your television sets now.
But the British Isles is not all that Her Majesty the Queen owns. Far from it. As a matter of fact, Queen Elizabeth II is the largest landowner in the world.
You must listen to no orders. That's all I can tell you for this point in humanity. Believe me.
By a large margin. The Queen owns 1/6 of the Earth's land. And she is the only person in the world that owns entire countries. Queen Elizabeth II owns 6.6 billion acres of land, and she is head of state of 16 countries. Collectively known as the Commonwealth Realm, she owns the entire countries of Canada and Australia, which are the second and sixth largest countries in the world, respectively. The Queen's total land holdings are worth an estimated £25 trillion, which makes her, by a considerable margin, the wealthiest person on the planet.
I bled all over her shoes.
But it's not quite as simple as that.
Oh, come on, Richie, let's just rumble the old bird.
No, Eddie, you don't kill the goose that laid the golden egg. Golden egg? Oh, yes, it was a golden egg. Oh, piss, I got it wrong.
She is more of a ceremonial owner of said countries. While she does technically own the land, the individual country's government,
put in its puppet government,
an independent body who acts on behalf of Her Majesty the Queen, have ownership of the titles of the lands, and they profit from it. The Crown doesn't actually see any profit from much of its land holdings. Because of this, the Queen's actual estimated wealth is somewhere around £275 million. I mean, that's not to be sniffed at, but it's rather measly for somebody who owns 1/6 of the planet.
And he's kind of looking dumb, and he says, well, I'm just here to tell you that your court case has been canceled.
An independent body who acts on behalf of Her Majesty the Queen.
I was like, this can't happen. You can't cancel my court case. And he kind of snickered. Well, I ended up calling the courthouse, got it rescheduled. And upon the rescheduling, I got it in. And next thing I know, I'm being subpoenaed by Dina Hinshaw's lawyers now.
An independent body who acts on behalf of Her Majesty the Queen.
On a Sunday morning at 11:53 in the morning, I time-stamped process server serving me this. In less than 24 hours, I had to be in behind closed chambers with Dina Hinshaw's lawyers and the judges.
An independent body who acts on behalf of Her Majesty the Queen.
And I'm like, okay, well, this is odd. This is what's called a procedural violation. You cannot service somebody a subpoena less than 24 hours before court. And I knew they were up to something dirty. When I got the subpoena, we went into court. I get into court the next day. I call procedural violation 100%. They said, yes, it's a procedural violation. I said, okay, Your Honor, well, let's adjourn it to Wednesday. And this would have been July 24th. And I would have been in court. And she says, no, we can't. I said, Your Honor, this is a procedural violation. And well, when that happened, Dina Hinshaw's lawyer spoke up. And she said, well, Your Honor, Mr. King is requesting evidence that we cannot give. Mr. King is requesting evidence that we cannot give. Mr. King is requesting evidence that we cannot give.
The lab being closed for recertification, yes. I am not, however, entirely sure they are right about them delaying the genome findings. The chief scientist said he got it on the 3rd of January, he worked on it for about 40 hours and he uploaded it to that US site GenBank on the 5th of January. And there it is, dated 5th of January. Dates do not lie.
If we look at screens like these once a second for 8 hours a day, it'd take 2 years to look at the entire DNA strand. It's that long.
And I was kind of like, what? And I sent you a screenshot of it, and in the screenshot it says, the chief medical officer of health has no material evidence to provide Mr. King for his defense, which basically means everything that I requested in Schedule A, which is the isolation of the SARS-CoV-2 virus, that needs to be 100% isolated in order to base your scientific facts on these public health acts. You don't have material evidence for this. And they said no. And I had to reiterate again to the lawyer, or to the judge. I said, Your Honor, just for the record, I want it to be on the record, duly noted, that the Chief Medical Officer of Health,
an independent body who acts on behalf of Her Majesty the Queen
of Alberta,
of Canada and Australia,
does not have material evidence I request. She says, yes, Mr. King, they did say that. Perfect. I lose the subpoena on Dina Hinshaw. That's okay, because what had happened is a procedural violation. So now, where's my accuser? If the Queen is my accuser, I get to address my accuser. Well, lo and behold, they find out that everything I did is absolutely phenomenal. They can't believe it. I'll still remember the look on the faces. So I reiterated again, the Chief Medical Officer of Health of Alberta, Ms. Dina Hinshaw, and AHS and the Alberta provincial government do not have the material evidence I request for the isolation of SARS-CoV-2. And when the judge said that, these two stenographers, or a stenographer and a clerk, just went like this.
Yeah.
And their jaws dropped to the floor.
Yeah, they must have looked at the judge like, what, are we supposed to type this?
Yeah.
Do you really want this on the record? I mean, this is amazing stuff. And it's so simple when you think about it. This is so simple.
A new world order.
A roadmap for the future.
That's what makes a plan so flawless.
Ain't nobody dumber than y'all. Ain't nobody dumber than y'all.